So today I want to show you guys the introduction to 3D printing. Now I do want to warn you ahead of time that this is going to be a lot of pausing in the video. You're going to need to make sure that you pause and go do as I tell you to do, so that way you can create your basic keychain in order to create your customized keychain. So let's start by talking about the basics of 3D printing. So really what comes down to is, how does 3D printing work? Well, it works by three main pieces. You have your extruder, which is the part that actually prints off the filament. Now your filament is kind of like plastic. It's actually made of corn, but it's kind of like plastic and it hardens like plastic. Your extruder heats up to about 428 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about what you would bake a pizza at. It's hot enough to melt your skin, so you definitely don't want to touch your extruder. And what your extruder does is it prints off your object layer by layer on the platform. Now, 3D printing is not as easy as clicking print. You see, there's a process. In order to 3D print, you have to first design something in 3D. And that we are going to use Tinkercad. But once you've done that, you still don't just press print. You have to turn it to a file called an STL. Now an STL, what this stands for is Standard Triangle Language. But what it really means is you and I speak English or Spanish, and we understand those languages. But a 3D printer only understands STL. And so that's the code we have to send it in, an STL, so the printer can understand it. Once it's in STL, you have to slice it into layers, because you see, a printer will print out your object line by line, layer by layer, about the size of a hair. Once it's done that, and it's sliced in a slicer program, it's going to become a G-code. And that G-code is what's sent to the printer, and it starts to print off. Now I want you to understand that 3D printing doesn't happen quickly. It takes hours, sometimes days, depending on the size and the number of layers. What a 3D printer reads is the three dimensions. The first dimension is X, that's left to right. The third dimension is Y, that's front to back. And the third dimension is Z, that's up and down. These are the three dimensions that you need to know as you go into Tinkercad. So now what I need you to do is I need you to go to your slides, the 3D printing intro, and click on the Join Class. Sign in with Google by clicking on the G, and get to your dashboard. Pause the video while you log into Tinkercad. Now that you've logged into Tinkercad, this is the keychain you will make. But I want to show you how to get there. First thing we need to do with Tinkercad is we need to create a new design. Now, I got an issue with mine. Just give me just a second. This might happen to you. There we go. Sorry about that. And so now I've been able to get in there by clicking the blue Create a Design button. I'm going to go ahead and name mine Keychain 1. Pause the video and you do the same. So the first part of the keychain is that this keychain is going to require two parts, a top and a bottom. The top is going to be smaller than the bottom. So we must first use a cylinder to create the top part of our keychain. To do that, there are two types of cylinders. There's a solid and a hole. We're going to use the solid. We'll use the hole later. So the first thing I do is I click on solid cylinder and then I click on my board. Pause the video while you do the same. Now that you've done that, we've got to size our keychain. We don't want to make our keychain too thick or it'll take too long to print and it won't fit on a keyring. So the first thing I got to do is I got to change my Z. Z is up and down. Now there are all kinds of squares on this shape. There are 4 squares in the shape of a square. Those represent your X and Y. The top middle square represents your Z. I'm going to click on the top middle and I'm going to change my Z, which is up and down, to 3. Pause the video and do the same thing. Now that you've done that, we are going to go ahead and enter our second square. Our second cylinder is also going to be solid. I said square, I meant cylinder. And for this one, we also have to change the Z. So I'm going to click the top middle square and change it to a 3. Pause the video and do the same. So you're starting to notice there's lots of pausing and whatnot. That's what's going to continue to happen until we finish our keychain. So now that you've done that, what we're going to do next is we've got to change the X and the Y. The top middle was the Z. The X and the Y is left to right, front to back. For the X, I'm going to change it to 60. And for the Y, I'm going to change it to 30. I did that just by clicking on one of the bottom squares. And so now I have my X and my Y. Pause the video and change your X and your Y. Now that you've done that, we've got to move. We've got to move our bottom oval to our top circle. To do that, I'm not going to click on these squares. I'm going to click in the orange area, hold, and move it up to right about here. I want to get as close to middle as I can. Pause the video and move your bottom oval. Now that we've got these two pieces put together, what we're going to do next is we're going to talk about how we can look at it at different ways. Over here you see an icon that looks like a cube. It says top and front. If you click and hold on it, you can move your board. You can see under, above, you can change the side. This allows you to see the different dimensions in 3D. So now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and put these two pieces together. Right now, that line is going to cause this to print two separate shapes. So I'm going to teach you to do something called a lasso. To do a lasso, click below our shapes and hold. And then we just drag up so that the red dotted square selects all of my shapes. Once I've done that, I'm going to group them together by clicking on this icon right above the word shapes that says group. Pause the video and group your two shapes together. Now that we've done that, I also want to show you how to ungroup just in case you accidentally ungroup it. To ungroup, you just press the button next to it. So now let's talk about how you might align yours. Well, to align it, we're going to lasso by clicking low, dragging high. And this button up here is going to align it. Now to align our two circles, we align them so that they're symmetrical. So when you click this align button, it's going to give you dots. It's going to give you 3 dots on the Y, 3 on the X, and 3 on the Z. We're going to align on the X. The X is the left to right. So I click the middle circle and it moves my circle over. Once I've done that, I'm going to lasso and group. Pause the video and you do the same. Now that we've done that, we're ready to punch a hole in our keychain. To punch a hole in our keychain, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in by pressing the plus button, and I've got to enter a whole cylinder instead of a solid cylinder. So now that I've done that, I want you to do the same. Pause the video and put your whole cylinder down. Now for this cylinder, we're not going to change the height. We're going to change the X and the Y. To do that, you press the bottom square, and we're going to make the X 4 and the Y 4. What we have created is a hole puncher. Pause the video and do the same. Now we've got to move our hole puncher. To move our hole puncher, we click in the middle of our hole puncher, but do not click the squares. You click in the middle and hold and move it down to about the center of the top circle. Once you've done that, you're going to lasso and align. Make sure you line on the X-axis just like you did previously. Pause the video and do the same. Now that you've got it aligned and it's on top, you have to punch the hole. To do that, click on your cylinder, and right above there is a triangle or a black dot. Click on that and move it down. Don't move it all the way, but what you've done is you have punched a hole, as you can see, straight through. Now we are going to lasso and group. Pause the video and do the same. You might need to re-watch that, so feel free to go back if you need to. Now that we've got a hole in the top, we now got to put our name on this. To put our name, I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to change my angle. Now I'm going to go ahead and insert text. To insert text, I'm going to click on Basic Shapes and go down to Text and Numbers. And then you will see text. I'm going to place my text right above. Once I've done that, I've got to change it to my name. So I'm going to backspace it out and put my name. And then I'm going to change it to whole instead of solid. Pause the video and you do the same. Now that you've got your text on there and it is a whole, we're going to move it down so that it's on the bottom half of our keychain. Right now it's too big, so I'm going to make it smaller by clicking in the corner of the squares here. And I'm going to shrink it by pulling diagonally. Make sure not to pull left or right, but kind of pull at a diagonal and then move it. Oops, I moved the wrong thing. What's really important is make sure you're on your text. I'm going to move my text so that it's kind of on there. I need to zoom in. I might need to change my angle to make sure it's where I want it. And once I've moved it and resized it, I'm going to group, I'm going to lasso, and I'm going to align. I'm going to make sure that I align on my X axis, which is the left to right. Now that I've done that, pause the video and you do the same. Now I'm ready to punch my hole with my name in it. I'm going to do it the same way I did the cylinder. I click on my name and there's that triangle. If you click on it, you can push down. And now what it's done is it's punched a hole through your keychain. Pause the video and do the same. Now you're ready for your final step. And that is to lasso and group. Once you do that, it'll punch a hole. And this is how it'll print on the 3D printer. This is your basic shape. This is not the one you will print. This proves to me that you know the basic steps in creating a keychain.